Another Tuesday, another time where I keep doing my tradition on watching movies only on Tuesdays. Although this time was a little bit different because instead of going to AMC, I went to Regal. It was a movie that I was kind of like so and so anticipating. Well, not too anticipating because, well, okay, let's get this out of the way. I'm talking about Jurassic World Rebirth, which is the fourth installment of the Jurassic World movies. I don't know why they decided to go back with it. Oh yeah, because it made a lot of money. Considering that critically it was panned by people who they do have some genuine love to the franchise, but then in which each sequel it gets dumber and dumber and dumber and dumber. Although for me, it was Fallen Kingdom that basically killed off the franchise because of that stupid clone girl, that terrible actress, terrible everything, even a terrible character in which she basically annihilated humanity, and she gets no repercussion for it. And of course, then Dominion came, and it was even worse because not only Clone Girl doesn't get her comeuppance, but they really wanted to shoehorn in nostalgia bait because they brought some of the original cast, and it was a total disaster. And we thought that we were gonna finally leave this franchise extinct, just like the first movie. It was almost like a cautionary tale about where you mishandle science, and the consequences that it brings and all this stuff. But okay, some people still love dinosaurs. Kids love dinosaurs, especially with that garbage series called Camp Cretaceous. I still can't believe that thing exists. I watched one episode of that crap, and it was what I feared, in which they tried to make everything family friendly when people they kind of missed the point. They missed the point that it doesn't go with that. So Rebirth, it didn't give me too much hope. Although I will give it credit that I was a little bit piqued interest because, first of all, I still like dinosaurs. I'm not a very knowledgeable in dinosaurs, but I still kind of like it because they are kind of close to dragons. And also, the movies show no signs of that gosh darn clone girl. As long as they try to get away from that clone girl, the better, because God, she was an awful. And sometimes I still want to imagine that she was eventually got eaten by a T-Rex or something like that. Yeah, but still, I was still not. I still didn't give too much faith on that movie, I'll say, because first of all, of course, it was being directed by this overrated director named what was it? Gareth Edwards. Yeah, Gareth Edwards. Gareth Edwards. He doesn't have a good filmography for starters. I think that the only movie I actually enjoy from him is Rogue One, Star Wars story. Although that one still shows its flaws, and many people say that his Godzilla movie is good, but unfortunately that movie gets worse and worse and doesn't age well, especially considering that Godzilla looks too fat. He doesn't show up too much, and it's a long sit. So I don't have too much expectation with this guy. So honestly, then I finally get the chance to go watch that movie, and I was kind of feeling of watching something stupid by the way, especially because today I had kind of like a little bit of a lousy day. First of all, my freezer broke, and so I am kind of paying attention because I don't want the food spoil. Second, I had a terrible night. I couldn't sleep. I had a little bit of insomnia. Third, I had to go to the dentist, and I was scared of the dentist. it's still hot. We're still in summer, and probably this is kind of like the hottest summer we are in. But okay, movies, whether good or bad, as long as it doesn't put me in a foul mood, it's gonna be good. But honestly, it's funny because I had a kind of like a college that even who saw the movie. He was like, "Life is too short. Don't watch it," or something like that. Although I just had planned because, well, as a guy who likes film, sometimes I also have my pride. But also, don't worry. I mean, I sit through the Lilo and Stitch remake. Nothing is gonna. I don't think nothing is gonna break me this year, and I saw kind of like worse. And you know what? Don't worry. I know that I didn't hear your warnings, but let it be known that thanks to that, I'll share your pain. We'll share pains. But okay, but here is my honest thought about Jurassic World Rebirth. Granted, I don't hate it as much as Dominion or Fallen Kingdom. Thankfully, because Clone Girl is not in sight. But that's not saying much. That movie still sucks. Is 2 steps forward and 1 step backwards. And you can tell that they still have a little bit of a stench of the repercussion of that Clone Girl. But apparently they just swept it under a rug and they tried to say, okay, that never happened. But instead, we got a movie that it feels inconsistent in its own self. It wanted to make so much, but build or cook so little. And the whole experience kind of comes up into the margin of stupid and as well as dumb or boring in some cases. It was kind of boring, and I know that there were some interesting things that happened, but unfortunately there were some things that it felt invested. Some people are calling that this movie is going by the numbers, but no. At least when you follow things by the numbers, at least it have a structure. It have kind of like a consistency on it. But this one, the best way I can describe it is that it wanted 2 plots, and it only had the chance to say, we have 1 plot. What are we gonna do? Okay, let's do this. No, we have another plot. Let's bring those 2 together, and then separate those 2 plots, and then bring them together, almost like a Phineas and Ferb episode. And I'm not a fan of Phineas and Ferb. Oh my god! And you know what? Now I'm beginning to feel the heat here. I even turned off the AC for the sake of the video because you will hear it. Okay, I'll try to make this fast. So, Jurassic World Rebirth takes place kind of like 17 years after the Minions, apparently. I don't know if it's 17 years or 3 years, apparently. And apparently they swept it under the rug by saying that, okay, apparently the weather kills off the dinosaur. Yeah. The weather kills off the dinosaur, and the remaining, they're just relocated somewhere. And apparently the world looks fine. It's kind of like the same problem I had with Dominion, because the thing is that when a world gets overpopulated by dinosaurs, it's gonna be more chaotic than you can imagine. It's not gonna be like Dinotopia or something like that, because at least Dinotopia has sense of fantasy, but this one is more like science fiction. No, I would just if dinosaurs like the Jurassic Park dinosaur overrun the world, this is gonna be chaos. It's gonna turn like primal rage. But now everything kind of looks fine, and okay, the locust is gone. Dinosaurs, out of nowhere, they just somehow die, and it took them only 17 years. It's not kind of like 100 years or something like that. And apparently humanity is still good. Some still walk around. And, well, then we got the plot. The plot is about this group of mercenaries that they that they want to find three samples of three different dinosaurs. What was it? The Monosaurus? I don't know the name of the one, but one is that looks like a whale, a Brachiosaurus, and another pterodactyl chicken type dinosaur. They want blood samples of them so they can build a cure for heart disease or something like that, cardiovascular disease, something like that. They just want it, and of course. The one that leads the team is none other than Scarlett Johansson, who is in it for the money. What was the other? We got, of course, Jonathan Bailey, who plays the kind of like this guy who loves dinosaurs, and he's kind of like sad, and he's kind of roped into it because he knows about it. He knows about dinosaurs, and. But they rope him in saying that, hey, you're coming with us because you're knowledgeable about dinosaurs. You know how they look like. And I was like, you know how they look like? Okay, here's a picture. Couldn't they show in that? Of course, we got other characters, like for example, Scarlett Johansson's partner, which is played by Rupert Friend, who is, of course, the greedy CEO kind of guy. And of course, the guy who managed the boat was another mercenary ex-soldier played by Mahershala Ali. That's kind of basically kind of like the plot A, believe it or not. That is supposed to be plot A, because later in the movie, plot B, it centers around this family. For better or for worse, I don't like putting labels on that, but it's centered in this Latino family in which it has a father who was played by Manuel Garcia Rulfo, his daughter played by Luna Blaze. Also, the little daughter, played out Audrina Miranda. And of course, the eldest daughter, a slacker boyfriend, played by David Lacono. I think they were kind of like in a boating vacation, and I don't know why they went to the area that apparently is overrun by dinosaurs, and then they get stranded, and then, of course the mercenary picks them up, and this is where they are together, and then. For some reason, the movie separates those two teams again for the majority of the movie, and then the movie kind of divides itself into the mercenary group and the family, and they just don't get together until the final moment. And it's almost like they wanted to make two plots, but they couldn't because no one has kind of like the heart to say that we need one plot. No thanks, something like that. Boy, because of that, the pacing kind of becomes a little bit dull, especially because the movie is kind of like, I think 2 hours, 13 minutes, but it feels so long, I'll say. And if you ask me personally, I'm kind of a little bit more invested in the family subplot, mostly because I find this family kind of like the most vulnerable of them all, and I like the father figure. I like the father figure who he's kind of like the guy who is kind of like wise. He protects his daughters and all this stuff. Although he has this kind of like distaste to the boyfriend. Although that boyfriend, he kind of comes as an exception in some areas, because this boyfriend is a little bit kind of like this try-hard comic relief in which he's a guy that probably belongs in one of those unlikable Total Drama Island type of characters, in which they wanted to build him that he is kind of like a slacker, and that he and his girlfriend they get along, but the father doesn't approve. But then he just does one insignificant thing, like saving her life, and doesn't feel like a kind of like high impact or something like that. And boy, that doesn't work. It's just here's the thing is that. And it's not just the family part, but also the mercenary part. Is that they wanted to cook, this character development or anything, but nothing feels centered. It all just kind of like bullet points, and this goes alongside, of course, with the little girl. This little girl is, well, granted, she's not as bad as the clone girl. Clone girl is 1,000,000 times worse. But the problem that I have with the little girl is that it's very easy to know which character is gonna survive, because none of these movies, they have the gall to kill off children. And I know that I sound awful, but when you don't kill children, it kind of showcases that you're kind of afraid to put stakes on a movie. You have to, I mean, not necessarily you have to kill the child, but you can, but things happen that it's kind of pretty easy to see that if you have put a cute little girl, she's gonna easily survive. And I know that it sounds mean, and I don't want to do that, but honestly, if you want to put kind of like a step up in that movie, I mean, kind of put them kind of like this legitimate danger. And by the way, the movie actually wanted to play cutesy because this little girl also finds this little dinosaur that this little dinosaur has no purpose except for to be cute. It doesn't even help, help into the movie. It's just there, and this dinosaur actually causes a little bit more trouble than it's worth. So this little dinosaur, what was the point except for marketability? And well, and it's funny that I'm starting talking about the family, because that's plot B, in which we have plot A, in which, of course, the mercenaries. Scarlett Johansson, I mean, I don't dislike her except Black Widow, but she kind of comes off kind of like a very snarky, unlikable character in the way that they wanted to build her, in which she say that she lost friends, but then she just brushes when the carnage happens, when two of her colleagues, they get killed. It's like, no, I meant it for the money. And she has kind of like this snarky face that you kind of don't root for this character. And they wanted to build her. Like, for example, that she kind of had this PTSD kind of thing. And by the way, she says it out loud that she has PTSD, but she doesn't show it. She just says it. Exposition. And apparently this is kind of like the obligatory reason why she feel compelled on protecting the family. A family that she gets separated during almost the whole movie. And then she gets conversation with Jonathan Bailey. And honestly, I don't know, it doesn't... It feels like, hey, what are you gonna do with your money? I care for that money. Oh, but you can do it for the people by giving it for free or something like that. I don't know. And of course, unless I talk about Rupert Friend, who plays the greedy CEO, who he acts like a jackass, like always, and all this stuff. And yeah, and by the way, here's the funny thing. For a group of mercenaries, they go into this dangerous expedition. And for mercenaries, none of them brings weapons. No guns. They only go there and they just bring, these guns that they shoot this needle that automatically sucks the blood of the target, and then because of course they need the sample of these 3 dinosaurs, but. Yeah, for mercenaries, they're kind of like the dumbest, because they go, even if you go into an expedition to collect samples, you still need weapons. Because you're talking about dinosaurs. Dinosaurs, they're there to kill you. Oh yeah, and by the way, remember that I said that on the family side, I actually like the father figure? Well, in the mercenary side, probably the only character who actually comes up as likable is Mahershala Ali. he's kind of like the soldier, but he's actually the only one who actually show some kind of emotion and duty on what he's doing. He's the only one who actually shows some compassion and humanity to all the things that are happening, even much better than the poster child, Scarlett Johansson. Yeah, and there's kind of like other characters that are there. They're mostly kind of like we're going into the meat grinder. Although there is also this guy who speaks African, and in which they only has they. I think it's African. I don't know the language that he goes, but it's always subtitled only when it's convenient for some reason. And of course, we got the dinosaur for it, but this is mostly reserved kind of like the cinematography, which again, more of the pacing is dull. You can tell that CGI is still there, and maybe this is kind of like the reason why many people are kind of lose the magic and the touch of that Jurassic Park did, because Jurassic Park was kind of like a new thing. I think they did have some animatronics here and there, and which kind of makes it look real. But this one, while the effects are not bad, but you can still tell that they are CGI, and this is kind of like the odd things that sometimes I can't put my finger where it goes. So I can't tell where it goes. Although of course you have Easter eggs here and there. There's also the Jurassic Park theme, in which of course everyone is like, wow, this is amazing, it looks good, something like that. And of course there are some moments that I really consider as stupid. Like for example, you can tell that this movie is gonna be so stupid when the first event that happens during the whole movie is this Final Destination type of incident where a whole medical science research facility, it gets computer haywire, it gets locked down, the security goes on, off, haywire, and all this stuff. All these things happen because a Snicker bar candy wrapper gets stuck on a vent. Bar, a candy wrapper. How a small piece of aluminium gets stuck on one door vent, and it goes haywire. This is beyond stupid. Also, this is something that not even Final Destination can come up with. And Final Destination makes all those crazy things believable with a penny. But this was a candy wrapper. And that's how, and yes, I already told you that things get escalating stupid, like, humanity actually being functional after dinosaurs roaming around, and apparently it looks fine. Also, there was kind of like the scene in which they meet each other in kind of like in this bay, where they're playing poker, but I kind of gave a little bit of an intentional laugh, because in my head I was thinking that was the scene of Cannibal Holocaust. and of course I also forgot to mention that scientific facility is actually I think it was Jurassic World kind of like research center in which their biggest motivation is that these people are cloning dinosaurs and making genetic experiments because apparently according to them the original dinosaurs are no longer interested. People are losing interest on it, so they decide to make him brand new ones. I think that this is kind of like an allegory of what is happening with this franchise, and this is kind of like an unintentional coincidence that they mirror each other, and so we barely see some. We barely see some of the original dinosaurs, and when they get there, they're mostly crossbred, interspecies, cloning type of dinosaurs that you see them kind of like like a mixture of one of another. And by the way, the big bad dinosaur, and they just reveal it right at the end. This whole build up in the prologue, it's only likely for the laugh. But in the meantime, we just see kind of like iguanodons from the water. As these kind of dinosaurs. By the way, I did mention that the problem that this movie has, where they have almost no stakes with it, is that most of the characters they actually come, especially the main ones, they get away mostly by sheer luck. Like the stoner guy, he kind of come up with this kind of Looney Tunes kind of type of escape in which he just makes it out alive from raptors by dumb sheer luck, by absolute sheer luck. and that's basically what kind of happens. And when you kind of make all these characters that you don't have to kind of like the heart to kill them off, or you want to make the movie kind of like more pretty safe for pretty much a general audience, because at this point they kind of aware that children likes the dinosaurs and Jurassic Park, and they don't want to scare them off their wits. So not much with that. Also, they're also kind of come up with some kind of stupid moments that it kind of comes up with the camera direction, I'll say. There is a scene in which a character gets eaten by a dinosaur, but it's mostly because this character failed on its peripheral, its vision, because and the camera kind of I don't know if it's a clever or it was kind of like dumb, but it kind of makes like the character the character just gets behind this big pile of supplies, and because this character doesn't know that this big giant dinosaur also gets behind, and then something like that. Okay, I can live with that, but probably the stupidest one is the stupidest moment I have seen on this kind of try hard suspense moment is ironically in probably I will say that is the most intense moment of the movie, in which it has the T-Rex. It's where the T-Rex is, and it involves a raft. But that part was good, except for the fact that there was a moment in which the character opens this inflatable raft while the T-Rex is lying on its feet asleep. And then the inflatable raft, it inflates to the point that it covers the T-Rex from the background. And then seconds later, the inflatable raft is put on the floor, and immediately the T-Rex is gone, like a second, almost like if the T-Rex was a freaking ninja. I was like, that was the stupidest thing I have seen. Which also kind of leads also with the climax in which the two parties get together. Also, this kind of showcase kind of like the typical thing, and this is where finally we get these dinosaurs that I think that on closer view, I don't know what they resemble, but I saw a kind of like a still shot of this picture, and for some reason it kind of remind me of Tolka from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Secret of the Ooze. But then we get kind of like the big dinosaur, in which they call it the D-Rex. This dinosaur, it kind of looks like the Rancor. That's the best way I can describe without spoiling too much. It looks like the Rancor. That's definitely the whole thing that I have to say. So, okay, I think I feel like I ranted a little bit too much of the movie more than giving it its praise for what it is. And again, I am grateful that they wanted to try something. They wanted to try to escape from the damage from Dominion and Fallen Kingdom, but still the stench is there, and you can tell that there's still needed to have a little bit more risk if you want to have people go back with open arms with the Jurassic World thing. And it's sad because I will say that even though I find it stupid that they open up theme park of dinosaur after what happened in the first movie, I still have a little bit of a guilty pleasure of the first movie, but no, I think that it's Clone Girl that the thing that basically broke me into this movie, and I was like, I didn't want to know anything, but I just came back mostly because I do like dinosaurs. I still like dinosaurs. And granted, again, this movie thankfully is not as bad as the Dominion or Fallen Kingdom, but it's still not good. It's still not good. But I will say this is that maybe I could rewatch this movie at least one more time, and maybe I could get a better or worse, but because this is something for me that coming from one who saw Fallen Kingdom and Dominion, and I don't want to see anything any more about that one. At least this one at least has something. But first falls first, and first though, well, it wasn't exactly a big pile of shit, but some of the stench still lingers a little bit there.